Hey guys, welcome back to the Out Jeeping YouTube channel. My name is Austin, and today's video is going to be a little bit different to the videos I've done in the past, and as you can tell by the video title, we're going to be rebuilding my 99 Jeep Cherokee that I use as a daily driver. And as you can probably tell, it has a front end collision on here, and that was due to a deer hit. So we're going to be doing a multiple part series on rebuilding this Jeep right here. Today's video, we're going to be focused on tearing this whole thing down, seeing all the components that are damaged, and then at the end of the video, we're going to have a final parts list of what we all need to order to fix this thing, and then we can start rebuilding it. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the front end of this Jeep, see what's all damaged, and start taking some things apart. So, let's get started. Alright, so taking a look at the front end of this 99 Cherokee. As you can tell, the front end is pretty smashed up, especially on the passenger side. We got the bumper pushed back and the front header panel all crinkled up, and it actually pushed back all of these coolers back here. Cracked the radiator and everything like that. We'll make our way to the side over here, and there's not really any damage to our front fenders and our hood as well. If anything, there's just a slight ding on the hood here, which is really nothing, and I probably won't even address that because this Jeep is not perfect. It has some dings and everything like that in it, but we're just going to make this so that way it's going to be freshened up, all new components replaced, and drivable down the road. So this is what it looks like from the front. Alright, so after looking at the front clip and how smashed up it is, we're going to look inside the engine bay and see how far the damage has actually progressed into the engine bay. First thing you notice is we got the serpentine belt off right here, and all the fans and everything got pretty much all cracked and everything like that. Fan shroud is broke, our electric fan is broke, just because of that radiator impact just kind of pushed everything into the engine. And as you know, with these 4-liters and the Cherokees, there really isn't a whole lot of room up here. And because of that fan pushing back, it actually pushed into the power steering pulley, and this is a part of it, shattered that guy completely, and that's where that belt came off. But other than that, that's pretty much all the major damage up here. Now, there is some hidden damage that we're going to have to take a look out for as well, and you have to have a good eye for it. So, for instance, I noticed that my intake manifold is slightly cracked. I'll have to show that later, but right here where the power steering pump is, there's a slight crack in there, so we might end up having to replace this as well. And that's just from the impact pushing on this power steering pump that's bolted to that intake manifold. It might have tweaked it slightly and led up to that crack there on the bottom. So we're going to have to keep a close eye as we start taking components off, so that way we're not missing anything as we're making our final parts list. But overall, on the structure side of the Jeep, everything actually looks pretty good. Our front panel right here, it's slightly bent up, but that's nothing too bad. We can easily push that down. Our metal core support that's back here, there's nothing I can see from the back side that's pushing back at that at all. And I did take a quick look underneath. There really isn't any frame damage except where that bumper bracket is on the passenger side. It did slightly just bend the frame a little bit, but we can easily pop that back out to get that straightened. So now that we did a quick overview of all the damage, I wanted to quickly talk about what you would do in something like this if you're in the same instance. I had insurance on this under comprehensive and everything like that, and with my insurance company, they did come out, assess the damage and everything like that, claimed that as a total loss. However, I did get a good settlement for it, and at the same time I was able to keep the Jeep with a clean title, and I'm able to do that in the state that I live in. Other insurance companies and other state regulations, they may differ. So it's actually working better for me to keep this, rebuild it, and still have some money in the end. However, since I did get a decent amount, more than what I would call for fixing this up, we're also going to add some upgrades in here as well, and I'll get to that a little bit later. It just makes sense if you have everything off in the front end, why not replace stuff when it's nice and easy and maybe do a little bit of upgrades at the same time. So overall, this rebuild shouldn't be very difficult compared to something that you might have frame damage with, but we don't know. There could be some hidden damage in some structural metal components, but we won't know that until we start taking some things apart. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to start in the front end here. We're going to take off this front clip, take off the front bumper, and then start removing things, work our way back to where all the damage is, and then from there we'll make our list, start ordering parts, and throw this thing back together. Alright, so let's start off on this front end here. We're going to take all the lights off of this front header piece, the remaining of the grill. get this header panel off, and then we'll work down onto the bumper and then start removing all of our coolers and everything. It's a good idea. Once you start taking things apart, make sure you have an area, if you can, to lay out all the parts. That way you can easily identify everything and see what's broken and everything like that, compared to just throwing everything in a pile. Now, one thing to consider, since obviously this header panel is pretty much cooked, we're not going to use it. Depending on which header panel you're going to be replacing this with, just kind of thinking ahead, you might end up having to use a lot of these fasteners and everything like that, especially like these headlight adjustable things right here. You can buy them new, but you save a little bit of money. If they're still good, you can reuse them and pop them into your new header panel if you get a brand new one. Otherwise, if you get a used one, a lot of times they have all that stuff in there, obviously. But even like these white plastic clips, if you come with a new plastic front header clip, I've done that on the past with the Jeep, you'll have to reuse all of these pieces right here where your screw bosses go into. One thing I'd like to mention, what I'm doing when I'm taking things apart, I'm bagging them. So I got these side markers here, and then I got the screws in them as well. That's definitely going to help by putting this back together, so that way you're not sorting through a bunch of miscellaneous hardware and won't have extra hardware and things like that. So being organized is key to rebuilding something like this, because you have a lot of components, a lot of different style screws and fasteners. So make sure you take the time and just bag them up real quick and label them, so that way you know where everything goes when you put it back together. So now for this header panel, looks like we got some 10mm nuts holding in place. So we got one nut in the corner of where the headlights are mounted, then we got the rest from the inside the engine bay going to the back side. Pretty sure we got all the fasteners. This should pop out. Might be a little bit tight. We do have to make sure that we unclip any wiring harnesses that are attached to this. So I see the turn signals all clipped into here. I'm actually going to take some pictures so I remember how the wiring harness is attached on the back side here. Then we got our main headlight harness that is attached up here too, so this is obviously going to come out in chunks. My headlight harness is going to be a little bit different from factory because I put the Jeep cables, headlight harness in here. So I got a little bit extra wiring. There we go. That is our header panel in pieces. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to work on is this front bumper, which is a little bit difficult to get at some hardware. I'm going to take it off with the bumper brackets attached to the bumper, so that means we got 3 15mm bolts, which we can actually access right up here on top. Unbolt that holds the main bumper, but we got these plastic bumper caps. The other side ripped off, this one's still on. Those have a couple 10mm bolts going up into it, and then a couple 10mm nuts attached to the front fender over here. The other side ripped out, so we don't have to worry about that. I also got some aftermarket fog lights. I'm going to undo those. I already got it disconnected from the wiring harness, so I'm just going to finish unbolting these, get them out of the way, and then we'll tackle this bumper. This is why I put anti-seize on my fasteners, so it looks rusty from the outside, but this is coming off nicely. So did that guy. On the passenger side here, there is a vacuum canister that's used for your engine vacuum system, and you want to make sure you don't break it. You want to keep it on here. It helps control your HVAC controls and everything like that. So we got a couple torques. Disconnect that. Looks like our vacuum line's still good. That's what that guy looks like. Alright, so with pretty much all the stuff off the front here, it's time to start getting this core support off and getting the coolers out of the way, all the fans and everything like that. So I'm going to remove this black top core support right here. It's held in mostly by 10mm bolts. All the fans and everything are screwed into here. With the factory screws, are usually 8mm, but I've since put rib nuts in there, so they're 1/4" hardware. We also got where the top of the radiator goes to. Those are also 10mm. This bracket right here, I'm going to leave that on with this right here because that's going to help line up the new header panel to kind of get the panels aligned a little bit better, so that can stay onto here as well. So I'm just going to start zipping stuff off and detaching things. One thing I do want to mention, since we're going to be taking off the AC condenser, if your system is still fully charged full of AC, you're going to want to go ahead and decharge that. Recycle it the best way possible. They make vacuum pumps out there so you can extract all that AC. Mine happens to be empty already because it drained when I had that collision, so I don't have to worry about that. Looking at the radiator right here, we got our 2 radiator mounts right here. If you can save these, try to do that because they're sometimes hard to find. This one's broke right here, but this one's still good. And then also keep all this hardware up here because sometimes on new radiators they don't come with all the new nuts, but they have the studs on them. So make sure to take off all the nuts and save them on the top right here as well. Alright, so now I'm going to drain the rest of the coolant that's in the system. There is a crack in the radiator, so much of it did leak out, but there's still some in there. I like doing it by undoing one side of the lower rad hose, since that is the lowest point on this cooling system. Compared to the petcock that's on the other side, there's a radiator. So I'm going to undo it right here. Got a catch pan and a bunch of pig mats underneath because it's probably not going to come out nicely. So undo this hose clamp and we'll have this all drain out. I'm just going to start undoing the transmission cooler lines that go into the radiator. My Jeep is also equipped with a factory tow package transmission cooler. So the transmission lines come from the transmission, go into the radiator, and then go over to the transmission cooler before going back to the transmission. So I'm just going to pop these guys free. So I got the transmission lines off. Top one threads off, the bottom one has a quick disconnect. I decided just to break it on the radiator side since I'll get in there a lot easier to remove that quick disconnect with the proper tool once the radiator's out of there. We got the upper hose right here, we'll just remove. So we're going to try and pull this condenser out of the radiator and remove the radiator by itself. So you might need to pry these guys apart. We got some rubber isolators. We're going to save those. Not sure if the new one comes with that, so little things like that you always want to watch out for and save them until you have the new parts. Go. Still a little antifreeze in here, so we'll just drain this in the drain pan. Alright, so before we can remove the condenser, we got to disconnect it from the AC lines. I got these special disconnect tools right here. I just got a universal set, cheap $25 one that has all different sizes on there from Amazon. They had these metal clips over here, so I popped those off, and then we're going to use these guys, and we're basically just going to push this into the connection and separate them. So we'll see how that goes. Guess there's still a little bit of gas in there. Oh well. Now we just got this one. And problem with these older vehicles is there's sometimes a lot of crap that builds up in that joint right there, so I'm going to clean that out a little bit with a pick and then try it again on the other one. This guy is pretty corroded in that joint. There we go. And that's our what used to be our condenser. Alright, now for the last cooler, we got this transmission cooler right here. I already got the lines disconnected. One was just a hose clamp, one was those quick disconnects, and I'm just going to unscrew it from the core support. A little bit of oil still left in this thing. Alright, so now we got all the obvious damage off of this Jeep right here, and we're just sitting with the front of the engine right here. And from here, everything looks pretty good, minus obviously the pulley broken off of the power steering pump right here. Now we need to really dive in and see what else is also damaged. It might be hard to see on some things, but for example, taking a look at this fan clutch right here, if I rotate that around, it doesn't look centric anymore. It's kind of wobbling a little bit. So that's something we're going to have to take apart and replace as well, because otherwise we're going to have a wobbly fan that's going to vibrate a lot. And you can kind of tell or hear there's a little bit of play in that bearing. So we're going to take that off, and then since obviously we're going to be replacing the radiator, I'm deciding that I'm going to replace all the coolant hoses. This upper one looks like it's been replaced before, but for how cheap they are, since they're in here, might as well redo it. Bottom radiator hose looks to be original. And the heater core hoses, we're going to replace those as well. So we're going to undo all the hoses on here and take off this fan clutch and possibly this power steering pump. It's a good time to also replace the lines here as well, going to your steering box from the power steering pump. And thinking ahead, there's also some other things that I want to replace on this front of this Jeep as well, as such as this water pump. I've never replaced it before. Looks like it's been replaced, but probably 150,000 miles ago. So, and this thing has a lot of miles. It's nice and easy to get at too. It's only $30, so why not replace all that stuff while you're in here? You have the best access to do so. But overall, if you're just rebuilding and you want to do it the cheapest way possible, if a component doesn't look damaged and still in good shape, you can definitely reuse that. But if you plan on keeping the vehicle and want it in great shape, it's best to just kind of replace things while you're already in here and you can get easy access to all this stuff. Alright, so we're at a point now where we got as much off as we need to be able to repair this thing to where it was before. Let's just go over quickly anything that was structural damage. There are a couple spots. So up here on the front passenger frame horn where it took the grunt of the hit, the passenger side bumper bracket was bolted on right here with these 3 bolts, and you can see it is a little bit bent in right here, but there is a channel where my fingers are, so we can easily get in here, take a big pry bar and kind of pop this out a little bit and straighten this end over here. The other side is just slightly bent with this tab up front, which can easily be hammered straight again. And then also here on the front part of the fender, which is actually this 90-degree adjacent to the main part of the fender, this is slightly pushed back, ever so slightly compared to the other side. So this, honestly, you can just take a pry bar, put it behind it, and kind of flex that back out, and it'll straighten out to where it was before. So overall, not too concerned on the front end of the Jeep. So now we can put a parts list together on everything that we're going to need to replace up here on the front end, as well as the parts that we're going to replace under just general maintenance, and to look at parts up front as well and to upgrade. Alright, so I made a quick list of all the parts that we need to order to replace this, and then I also have some upgraded parts, things just to replace while we're in here as well. Since we have the budget to do so. So I'm just going to quickly go over some of the obvious things. Obviously, we need a new radiator, the upper mounts that go with it, since those broke. We need a new AC condenser, and then while we're at it, we'll get a new O-ring set to replace all the connections, because we don't want any leaks on our system, so it's fairly easy to go through all the connections, pop out the old O-ring and pop in a new one. Moving on, we got all new coolant hoses. Since obviously we took all of them off, we're going to order all new ones, our upper radiator hose, our lower radiator hose, and our 2 heater core hoses as well. And then we need a new fan shroud for the mechanical fan. We need a new fan clutch for that side, since it got bent up as well. We need a new electric fan assembly. We need a new power steering pump pulley, which goes right here. And then for the header panel, I'm going to see if I can get a whole header panel assembly, something off of Jeep in the Junkyard, hopefully the same color, so that way I can just throw it on there and not have to deal with any paint or anything like that. And with the assembly, it should come with all of the little components for your headlights, turn signals, and everything like that, so it plugs all in nicely. We also need a new transmission cooler. I could route it how most Jeeps are and just use the radiator cooler, but I do like having that option, and since we're all in here, might as well just have a replacement one, so we can get a Hayden replacement one off Amazon, and that should work just as good. Obviously, there's going to be a bunch of other little things that you'll just have to dive into each individual project on here and make sure you have them, like hose clamps and things like that. But for the most part, that is all we need to replace to rebuild it. However, I'm going to dive in a little bit deeper and replace some other things which I could use your guys' suggestions on. Starting with the power steering pump, I'm also going to replace the main pressure line and the return hose on that as well, since they are original. I've already started spraying them down where I'm going to be replacing those. And then I'm also going to order a power steering cooler, since once again we're in here, we can easily route a new cooler in and put that in as well. And then I'm going to be replacing the water pump, since it's right smack dab in the middle, and new thermostat and housing as well. And I also want to dive into the internals of the engine a little bit too. So since this Jeep has well over 300,000 miles, every time you start it up, it clinks and clanks, probably because it has collapsed lifters or something like that. So I do want to go in there and change out a few things. Obviously, I want to take off the timing cover that's right here and replace the timing chain, since that's probably worn out. So, but I also wanted to replace the camshaft. And for only $100 more over the stock replacement, I can get a mild aftermarket cam for this thing. So if you guys want to see that, let me know down in the comments. I can make a separate video on replacing the camshaft in these engines. With the one I want to do, it's by Comp Cams. It's a mild cam, so you can throw it in there and still keep your stock tune. Won't have to flash your ECU or anything like that. So it should be pretty simple on installing that. Once again, if I replace that, the whole head, intake, exhaust, all that stuff has to come off. We'll have to replace it with new lifters, and I'll probably get new push rods as well. But the stock valve train and springs, that's all should be good with this new camshaft that I want to put in there. So you guys let me know if you want me to do that. Front bumper, we're going to do an aftermarket bumper, since I got a winch that I've been saving for a couple of years now, so we can throw that in the front. We can do a DIY front bumper, so we can assemble that, weld that all in, save a few $100, and then that should button up the front end pretty good. I also want to finish up with the frame stiffeners and do the front section. I got the center section and rear section all done. You guys can watch the past videos I've done on that as well. And then also I wanted to replace the power cables too, because they're looking a little bit janky with some Jeep cables. I've done that in my past Jeeps, and it's a nice easy upgrade to have good looking power cables, and something that won't leave you stranded by having bad battery connections and things like that. So overall, that's the main components that we're going to be replacing. Obviously, there's going to be little stuff, depending if we get a full header panel assembly or if we get parts and pieces, we'll have to replace individual components that are broken and things like that. Alright guys, that's going to be a wrap for today's video in this part 1 on this rebuild series on this Jeep Cherokee XJ. I'm going to go ahead and start ordering a bunch of parts, so next video we're going to be replacing some components on this Jeep right here and have some new stuff to throw back in. You guys let me know if you want to see that camshaft install, since I'm probably going to have to do that first before I install any radiators and things like that. Since that camshaft does have to come out the front of the engine, everything is nice and easily accessible right here. So let me know down in the comments if you guys want to see that, and we'll get that installed and then put the rest of the Jeep back together. So I want to thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to post them below and I'll be happy to get back to you. If you guys like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the Out Jeeping YouTube channel to help keep these videos coming. Until next time, we'll see you guys in the next video.